So this season, Caitlyn Clark has faced a lot of hate, a lot of dismissive comments, a lot of people trying to diminish what she's done in her career in college, and now this season her first to the pros, which was outstanding. She was named first all WNBA first team, which we knew had to come. She's just by far the best point guard in that league. Sabrina Ionescu is very good. She just recently hit a game-winning three to put the New York Liberty up 2-1 over the Lynx in the finals, put them one game away from a championship. But I couldn't help but looking at that play thinking, man, they would have had to have doubled Caitlyn on that play. She would have had two people back there with her to make sure she didn't get off a three. Sabrina, they didn't quite give the same respect to. She also has other people on her team too, so. But it seems like a lot of the people trying to say she's not that good or trying to diminish what she's done are University of Connecticut women's players and their coach, Gina Auriemma. Just seems like from the word go, they have just had an agenda against her. And it's pretty pathetic when you think about it, because look, the University of Connecticut's women's basketball team has won 11 championships since 1995. We're not talking about, way back in the day, no disrespect to John Wood and UCLA, but all but one of their championships were over 50 years ago, or almost 50 years ago, somewhere in there. I think we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of Wooden's last title, if I'm not mistaken. But in recent history, and the history of the WNBA, because 95 was their first championship and 97 was the first year of the WNBA, so the history of the WNBA seems like is the history of UConn women's stars. I mean, so many of them. And for some reason, they don't like Caitlyn. They keep wanting to take shots at her. And the most recent one, Sue Bird. She's actually been one who's, pretty much spoken the truth about Caitlyn for the most part. She's been seen as one of her supporters, but she has a podcast with her wife, Megan Rapinoe. If you don't know, and you probably know, unfortunately, you're probably like me, you don't want to know, but you do know. Megan Rapinoe is basically the answer to the question nobody asked. She's always putting her face out there and putting her 2 cents in when anybody could really care less. How she wound up with somebody like Sue Bird, I will never know. I guess it turns out or homosexual relationships, or same-sex relationships, I should say, are a lot like heterosexual relationships. We try to demean them. At the end of the day, there's a lot of them where you look at them, you're like, how did that person wind up with that person? So it's kind of gives you a little insight there. But yeah, they have a podcast together. They're married. And Sue Bird was talking about, because I guess they're talking about Breanna Stewart versus Caitlyn Clark. Breanna Stewart was the MVP last year, basically looked as the second best player behind Asia Wilson. But people who've watched the finals, I haven't watched them, but I've seen some highlights. The Asia whistle might have to be renamed the Asia Breanna whistle, because Brianna's good, don't get me wrong, but if she's the best the WNBA has to offer, if Asia's the best the WNBA has to offer, then that's a pretty telling sign. But Sue Bird was talking about it because UConn's most 4 recent championships came in a row, and Breanna Stewart was on all 4 teams. So in her 4 years of college at UConn, she won 4 championships. And she's like, well, isn't that the bar? And basically saying, I don't mean to diminish, just going to 2 finals. Those who don't know, Caitlyn Clark in her junior and senior year made it to the final with the University of Iowa and lost both times. However, it should be noted, in the entire history of Iowa women's basketball, which started in 1974, if I'm not mistaken, from my research for this, they have made it to the championship finals twice. And it was the last 2 years with Caitlyn Clark. They've had one other Final Four appearance. That was way back in 1993 when Vivian Stringer was their coach, who would go on to Stanford, I think it is. Or is it Rutgers? It's whatever team got called out by Don Imus. He made a shock jock, making some shock jock comments. And, they're off base, yes, but did he deserve to be fired for that as a shock jock? No. You know what you get when you hire these people. Goodness gracious. But she went on to win a championship. So that just kind of tells you how Iowa's program is. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've only made it to the Sweet 16 6 times, maybe? No, they've made it to the Elite 8 6 times. or 4 times, or I don't know. They don't have nearly as rich of a history as UConn, not by a mile. They've never won a championship. They made the Final Four 3 times. Only made it to the finals twice, and both times with Caitlyn Clark. And that's why I think, in my opinion, Caitlyn Clark has had the greatest college career of any women's basketball player. She was not surrounded by all-stars. She's not surrounded by all-Americans. She's not surrounded by future professional legends the way all these UConn players have been. Every single one of their championship teams has been a who's who of women's legends, people who did amazing things both in college and in the pros. Caitlyn's best teammate would have to be Kate Martin, who was drafted by the Las Vegas Aces and has not seen very much playing time. I mean, that is a stacked team, but still, when your best teammate can't even see minutes or barely sees any minutes in the WNBA, that's saying something. But yeah, Sue Bird was saying, well, I don't mean after diminishing, only making it to 2 finals and not winning either of them. She's like, I don't mean to diminish that after diminishing that. It's one of the dumbest things you can say. It'd be like me saying, I don't mean to diminish Sue Bird's 2 championships at UConn, but, because the fact is I do mean to diminish them, and I'm going to diminish them. Like I said, the University of Connecticut has won 11 championships from 95 to present. I believe 2014 was their last one, so over about a 20-year span there, they won 11 of the championships. Sue Bird was on 2 of them. So Sue Bird herself was a part of 18% of the Connecticut's championships. So she herself was a part of 18% of UConn's best accomplishment. Caitlyn Clark was a member of 100% of Iowa's greatest accomplishment, which is reaching the championship finals. And so if you're gonna try to knock her, you don't know what you're talking about. Brandon Stewart, for her part, has not said anything about that. She seems to be a little bit smarter than a lot of people when it comes to talking about Caitlyn. She doesn't say anything offensive about her or say anything, off the rails trying to demean her. I think she kind of understands that her ticket to some good paydays are through number 22. And she's going to, looks like she's going to play ball. But even Brandon Stewart, she was a part of 36% of Connecticut's championships. And of course, Diana Taurasi, they were asking her, how come Caitlyn Clark didn't make the U.S. national team? She's one of the best rookies ever with, in my opinion, the best, not the most decorated, but the best college career of anybody, because she took a team that's never been to the finals and only made one Final Four 7 years before she was born. No, 9 years before she was born. I can't do math. Took them to the finals twice. And set all the records and everything, and really drug that team to places they weren't going to make it. Just like she took the Indiana Fever to the 6th playoff seed when they've not made it to the playoffs since 2016 in a 12-team league. So that just shows you where the Fever have been. But yeah, Diana Taurasi, she's like, well, I won, like it was all her. Like she didn't have Sue Bird on 2, or at least one of those teams, and legends on all of her teams. On the 3 that she won, she was a part of 27% of Connecticut's championship teams. Like she wasn't a part of stacked teams that Caitlyn Clark has never been on in her life. And when she was the All-Star team, which was supposed to be the B team, was really the A team, and they stomped Team USA in the All-Star game big time. And but yeah, she's like, I won 3 national championships, and well, yeah, you were a part of less than a third of all the good things that happened at UConn. The only constant there was Gino Auriemma, who, as you probably know, before the season just said all sorts of things, talking out of his rear end. He is he's a loudmouth. That's all you can say about it. He's your typical loudmouth Yankee. Not trying to diminish Northern people, but obviously loudmouths come everywhere from all regions. But he is, when you think of your typical Northern loudmouth, he's what you think about. And he had all sorts of things to say, saying it's so disrespectful for her to be in the MVP conversation. She should have been a very close third behind Asia and Nephesia Collier. And quite honestly, you could make a very good case that she was the most valuable player this year. Obviously, when it comes to value as far as money, She's by far the most valuable player. As far as value to her team, again, she went to a team that hadn't been to the playoffs in a league where 8 teams in a 12-team league make the playoffs. Hadn't made it since 2016. Took them to a 6th seed. Made them a lot more respectful than they had been. So you just gotta. I mean, why people want to diminish what she's done is just beyond me. But like I said, he was sitting there saying, so disrespectful. They want to put her in the MVP conversation when she had a very legitimate case for it. It's like she's on the wrong team. Well, is there a wrong team for her? She took Iowa, a team that since 1974 had only made one Final Four in 1993. She joined them in 2020 and promptly took them to 2 finals against juggernauts and lost. Kim Mulkey and Dawn Staley beat her. Lead teams beat her team. Led by Lisa Bluter, somebody I have a lot of respect for, somebody who never done anything in the college ranks as a coach. And she actually defeated Dawn Staley the year before. She defeated Kim Mulkey the year after, and she beat Gina Oriyama in the Final Four this year. So, I mean, she's beaten them all. She just didn't beat them all in the same year, which I know is kind of the point, but, you have to put some context there. The 2 best quarterbacks ever, Tom Brady and Joe Montana, they both won a college championship. Joe won his at Notre Dame. Tom Brady won his at Michigan. 2 teams that were known, at least at the time, for basically being championship factories. So that's not what makes them the best. What makes them the best is what they did in their professional career with teams that had been pretty pathetic before they got there. And even look at Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player ever. He won the national championship in 1982 as a freshman with my North Carolina Tar Heels. Sunk the game winner. Look, I got the picture of it right there. That's him sinking the game winner to win Dean Smith's first national championship after coming close many times and falling short to people like John Wooden and Bobby Knight and those Marquette teams of the 70s that were really, really good. No shame there, but big game James Worthy was a senior at the time, or a junior. This was last year. He might have gone pro. I don't remember, but I think he was a senior. Scored 28 points in that game and was the best player. Was rightfully named the most outstanding player. But Michael Jordan hit the big shot, but that's not why he's the best. He's the best because he went to a Chicago Bulls team which had never done anything and has not done anything since 1998 when he retired and won 6 championships. Took them places. Not only take them places, he took them to, probably, the best modern era team ever. And other than the Lakers probably, but, they're Los Angeles, they're the Lakers. They had Jerry West putting those teams together. Of course, they're going to win a lot of championships, but, so, I mean, you got to put a lot of perspective onto that, and who they're with. And by the way, do you know Gino's real name is Luigi? Which is awesome. Why? Why would you not go by Luigi? That's so much more awesome of a name. I mean, I get if that's your name and this is the name you've gone by with your family and friends. Well, let your family and friends keep calling you Gino, man. Publicly, you got to go by Luigi. That's awesome. But I digress. Yeah, he had a lot to say about Caitlyn, saying they put a target on her back, they disrespected the WNBA, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, she's, I guess Diana Taurasi said the best women's career of anyone that's played in the WNBA era. She's no Cheryl Miller by any means, but in the WNBA era, between her longevity and accomplishments, you have to say she's done the best, and Caitlyn is more skilled than she ever was. More valuable to her team than Diana ever was. And quite honestly, you got to say the same about Breanna Stewart. Breanna Stewart's never been on a team like the Indiana Fever and done anything with them. So that just shows you the domain that Caitlyn has in their heads. They're like, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's a better team out there than us and Dawn Staley's South Carolina teams and whatever teams Kim Mulkey's coaching. So I don't know. It's just this league just does not want to give her, quote unquote, her flowers. As I like to say, I've never understood that saying really, but it's time to put some respect on her name and treat her like she is, which is one of the greatest ever. So the greatest college player ever, and somebody who's definitely on her way, barring injury or saying screw this to the WNBA or the WNBA saying, screw you, we don't want you to be our best ever, we're just going to end it all right here and go on strike, which very well may happen. I think she should go down as the best women's basketball player ever. I think she might even top Cheryl Miller, which is saying something. I have all the respect in the world for Cheryl Miller. I wish she coached the Indiana Fever, to be honest with you. I think she, seeing the way she coached Caitlyn in the All-Star game on just dead legs and still using her to be effective and understanding what she needed to do, I think that would be a good future for her. So we'll see. Caitlyn Clark owns UConn. That's all I can say. She might not have any championships. They might have a million championships, but when you put it into context, Caitlyn Clark owns UConn. That's all there is to it. Thank you.